Hi guys, first off I want to just have a little apology as to this week again has been a bit of a messy week. I did do a top 5 Wednesday, but only when I went to edit it did I realise that basically the whole thing was out of focus, so I couldn't be bothered to change things. I've got a lot of family stuff going on, a lot of things in the house are changing, I'm having a lot of different things that I'm going through right now, so there's a lot of personal stuff and it's having an effect on the amount of time and energy and just when I actually get to do these videos. Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. Today is just a quick roundup of what I read in April and what I hope to read in May. Now my April TBR was really ambitious and I didn't actually get through all of it, so I'm a little disappointed. But I still managed to read 6 books in April. The last one I kind of finished on the 1st of May, but I'm still counting it. I still managed to finish 6 and I feel like that's really good considering I did also go through a reading slump. So yeah. The first book I finished in April was the 2nd volume of Saga, and then actually the 3rd volume of Saga was the 2nd book I finished in April. So I've got a review of both of these. It is spoilery if you haven't read the 1st volume. The first part of the video I talk about the 2nd volume, so that's spoiler free for volume 2, but when I lead on to the 3rd volume in the second half of the video, that is spoilery for volume 2, so if you've read volume 1 but you're on volume 2, you're more than welcome to watch the first half of that, you won't be spoiled. But if you've read volume 1 and 2, then you can watch the whole thing, you won't be spoiled for volume 3. There aren't any spoilers for the volume that I'm actually currently talking about, but there will be spoilers for the ones before it, if that makes sense. I really hope that makes sense. So yeah, if you want to go to my review for those, I thought they were fantastic. I gave both of them 5 out of 5 stars. I'm loving this series. I really highly recommend everyone, if you're a fan of graphic novels and a fan of sci-fi in particular, you really should read this series. It's great. I've already lent the 1st volume to a friend of mine to try and get him to read it because it's fantastic. The 3rd book I finished in April was Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson, and I have a review of this coming really soon. I've already filmed it, I've just got to edit it. I enjoyed this one. The problem with this one I think was that I put a lot of anticipation on reading it and I got really excited about reading it before I really fully understood exactly what it was. It was slightly disappointing just because I'd hyped it up, not because the book is disappointing. It's a good book, but I personally put a little bit too much hype in it. I got a little bit too excited about the idea of a superhero book. So this is basically about a comet comes into the Earth's atmosphere, and after that comet some humans start developing superpowers, and it's pretty much these superheroes, they're not really heroes but superheroes, are called epics, and it's pretty much trying to show you that absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's dystopian sci-fi type fantasy. I'm so bad with genres. And pretty much we follow this guy called David, and he is seeking revenge because the epic that controls New Cargo, which is where David lives, is called Steelheart, and he is responsible for David's father's death. So we just pretty much follow him and things ensue. It is a good book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads and I'm really glad I read it, and I'm looking forward to reading more Brandon Sanderson. The next one as well, I'm looking forward to the next one in the series. I still need to read, there's a short story between this one and the next one, which is out next year, January I believe. And I need to read that short story, but this one was fantastic. The 4th book I read in April was Fahrenheit 451. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars as well. Again, I have a review of this coming soon as well because I really want to review this one and talk about it a little bit. I did thoroughly enjoy it. I love dystopian fiction, as I'm sure you all know, and I love fiction that makes you think about things, and dystopian fiction tends to do that, and I think this got me thinking about a lot of different things and a lot of the ways that people live their life. It's all about books being banned, and those books are then burnt if they're found. If anyone's found with books, the books are burnt. So firemen are actually people who go around burning books. The replacement for books is like these huge entertainment screens. Like your house is just 4 screens rather than 4 walls, and it's really interesting because this culture lives off pure entertainment, just not thinking and just constantly being entertained and happy and like pleasured and that sort of thing, and I find that really interesting. The whole idea is that books make you think too much, and this book makes you think, so it's quite interesting. But yeah, like I said, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. The 5th book I finished in April was Angel Fall by Susan E. This one I gave 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and again I will be reviewing this one because I want to talk about it. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it, you know, that it was interesting. It was really interesting, but it's kind of, I don't know how else to put this, but it's kind of like trash fiction, like one of those sort of mass market paperback, the type of thing that like is so mainstream and so like accessible to everyone that the writing and the development of characters and that sort of thing sort of suffers for it. It's about a post-Angels apocalyptic world. Penryn is our main character, and she is basically struggling to take care of her family, her crippled younger sister and her schizophrenic mother. I think the biggest thing for this that made me want to read more, and I really want to read the next one, and I do want to know what's actually going to happen with these characters and with this story, is it's quite dark. Like, it's a lot darker than I would have anticipated, especially Paige's mother. Well, it's Paige's mother, but Penryn's mother is so dark. Like, it's really interesting, and some certain things that happen as well, they're pretty dark. I mean, it is post-apocalyptic, and that is what a post-apocalyptic world should be in my mind, and I really enjoyed that, and I want more of that. It's YA, and it's very much your stereotypical insta-love YA. I don't know, I did enjoy it, but I don't think it's worth more than 3 stars out of 5, so. And lastly, the last book I read in April, and I finished it on the 1st of May. Now I want to explain why I didn't finish it on the last day of April, because I very easily could have. I basically didn't want this to finish. I didn't want to lose the characters. I didn't want to close the book. I was just sat for hours in silence, just staring at the cover like, I don't want to end. I don't want to end this. This book has brought about a slight existential crisis in my life. I think this is the most perfect time for me personally to read this book because I resonate so much with it. I am basically the protagonist. The protagonist is me right now. Even though he's a like 29-year-old guy, that's all semantics. I can't imagine a better time for me personally to read it, and I can't imagine having not read it, and I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad I watched Megan Olivier review it, because if I hadn't, I probably wouldn't have got around to reading it, and it was her enthusiasm that made me want to read it and want to buy it, and I bought it, and I'm so grateful. I'm sure most people, if you follow me on Goodreads, you already know what this is, but it is Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. Now, before you get like all weird at the fact that it's kind of a rom-com, a rom-com, and that is not the type of book I would usually go for, but this is fantastic. This is like the first book that I have read that wasn't on my like books I should have read at uni list, that I feel like I could happily go to my university lecturers and be like, here we go, there's a contemporary perfect piece of prose. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this prose. It's funny, it's captivating, it's honest, it's so honest, it unashamedly so, and like, it's just brilliant. I don't have the words right now, like I don't even, I've not spoken about this yet, and I don't have the words. I will definitely be reviewing this, and I might even make this like a book talk so that I can go into spoilers because of the certain things in this that really resonate with me, and I want to talk about that. I have actually run out of stickers now, like these little index markers. I've run out of them now because of this, although part of that is because I got a bit OCD and put pink and blue and yellow because I'm weird like that. But like this follows Lincoln, who has just got a new job, and he's basically this sort of IT security for this newspaper offices, and he basically just reads people's email and sends them cease and desist sort of notes when they are using the company email for personal or inappropriate things. But he starts to read this conversation, like ongoing conversations between these two best friends, and he finds them hilarious. They are hilarious. He really likes them, and he doesn't want to send a cease and desist letter to them because he's just like, they're funny. And so he kind of just lets them carry on, and all the while he's still reading their email, and he slowly but surely starts to fall in love with one of them. And I think this is really interesting. It's a really interesting concept, and there's more than just that going on. I mean, this is set in 1999, and there's a lot of things. People seem to think that there's something going to happen at the turn of the millennium, and like all the computers are going to shut down, and so, you know, Lincoln's being constantly sort of told to keep things okay and things like that. Lincoln's just 9 years ago, he's gone through a really unpleasant breakup. Well, it wasn't that unpleasant, the breakup itself, but he was really hurt by it, and he's still over it, but not really sure whether he is over it. And he's like stayed in school and done like various degrees, and now he's back home living with his mother because it's cheaper. And like I said, I will do a book talk about this because I really want to go into Lincoln's character and explain why I feel like I resonate with him so much. But this was fantastic. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and it's definitely one of my favourites. It was one of my favourite books, and it was such a quick read. I was constantly interested. I read it on public transport and laughed out loud, like properly laughed. Like, it wasn't even just under my... I couldn't care less. Like, it was so funny and so brilliant, and so just, oh, it was brilliant. I didn't want it to end. I'm probably going to have to reread it at some point because I don't want Lincoln to leave me. So those are the 6 books I read in April. First book that I still haven't finished, that you might remember me talking about in March and saying that I was going to finish in April and still haven't. I was really loving this, and then my reading slump sort of started, and I just didn't get around to reading the last of it, and I really need to. I was really enjoying it, and I will read the rest of it. The next book on my May TBR, which was on my April TBR and I didn't get around to it, and I've already started it, is Stephen King's Peter Straub's The Talisman. It's quite a big, hefty book, and yes, it came like that. Don't judge me, I didn't like hurt my book. The third book on my list, and this was also on my April TBR, and it was the last one on my April TBR, so I'm sure you know what it is if you are following me on Goodreads or anything like that. It is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, and I am annoyed that I didn't get around to this, but after reading Steelheart and being slightly disappointed, I wanted to just go on to something short and that I could get through, because it took me 3 weeks to read Steelheart. 3 weeks, okay? That was ridiculous. Those last 3 books I read in a week, okay? So 3 weeks to read Steelheart because it was like the height of my reading slump, and it was ridiculous. I didn't really want to go straight onto another Brandon Sanderson because I felt like my mood would flow over. So I wanted something completely different toned, and I don't know whether this is or isn't, but you know, a lot of writers have certain styles and certain tones that they keep going back to, because fair enough, but I would rather have left this for a little while longer, so I'm hoping I'll be glad that I did. But this is now in my May TBR because I didn't quite get around to it, and it is quite thick. After those 3 books that I'm catching up on, the next is Under the Never Sky by Veronica Rossi. I still don't know that much about this like at all. I literally bought this because Lainey over at Ginger Reads, Lainey goes on about it and how much she loves it, and there's quite a few people that really enjoy it, so I really wanted to see what all the fuss is about, and I feel like it's going to be a really quick read. Then next is another classic, and it's The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. As far as I know, this is about like man-eating plants that are aliens or something. It's like, I don't really know, but it's a dystopian. I've seen a few people talk about this and say that they really enjoy it, a few people that really like dystopian reads as well. So the next thing on my May TBR, which hopefully I will get through and get to because I really want to read it, is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and after reading Attachments I have big hopes for this book. I am eager to read this one, especially after Attachments, but this is literally, this one is definitely a if I get time after all the other ones. The other ones are slightly more important. The last thing that I will be reading, or at least partially reading in May, I won't be starting this until next week. That is information for all of you guys that want to join me in a read along. It's Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. So the whole idea of this read along was that in May and June, so you know, because this is a huge book, so I'm giving myself 2 months to read this alongside everything else, because I feel like I will need to have a break from it. But this is one of those books that it's on my books I should have read at university list, so that'll be another book off of that once I've scratched it off. I really enjoy David Foster Wallace, and it's one of those things that everyone tells you should read. But yeah, there's I've set up a Goodreads group if anyone wants to get involved with reading it, or even helping me to maintain and moderate the group and give ideas on how we should go about reading it and how we should go about discussing it, what sections we will get to before we discuss things, and silly things like that. If anyone actually wants to help get involved with that, you're more than welcome to. I will leave the links to the Goodreads group in the doobly-doo, and yeah, pick up a copy of Infinite Jest if you are willing and able. I know Chris over at the Reading Roads has just finished this and is intending on doing a review, and I am definitely intending on watching that at some point, unless it's you know, not spoiler free, but usually his reviews are pretty spoiler free. So I did watch a little bit, his like a halfway mark review, and I will link that in the description as well, because that was really good, and it gives you a much better indication about what this is about than I could ever give. And so yeah, I don't know what to tell you about like making you want to read this book, because part of me doesn't want to read this right now. So those are all the books I read in April and what I'm hoping to get through in May. Let me know if you've read any of the ones that I'm planning on reading. Let me know if you've read any of the ones I have read. I would love to talk to you about them. I hope you pick up a couple of them, and I will see you all very soon. Take care, stay shiny, bye. There's no way I'm going to be able to lift all of these. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, that's a really bad number. It's not a bad number, but it's supposedly unlucky. There's 3 books, but friggin' hell, come on. Post just arrived! Okay, so this wasn't actually going to be part of my video, but the post just arrived, so got a little thing. I've ordered some things on Amazon, so okay. So this is, all of you Whovians out there will know who this is. So it's Canine. Yay! It's a little canine, so that's cool. Next one is actually going to be a book, so, and I think I know what this is. I'm actually kind of excited about this. So this is kind of the sneak peek at my April haul. Man, the cover's ripped. Yeah, but then I did buy it. It was like a scratch and dent. I just didn't know quite how much. This is The Collected Stories of Amy Hempel. So I am excited to have this one. I've read a couple that are in here. I read a couple of stories from it at university for classes. Hi guys. That was a little unboxing sneak peek that I didn't expect to happen.